order the Plan Commission meeting on November 17th at 6:31. First up is the approval of minutes from October 20th. Any changes?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Seconded by Stephen, moved by Ed. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that is approved. Public appearances for non-agenda items. I don't think we have anyone that's non-agenda. Scott, do you have anyone? All right, no one for that. Agenda review, any changes that you need, Sonia? No. All right, then we'll get right at it. First up is ADR 6270 Limestone Lane. I believe I saw Danny online. I'm not sure who all is gonna, if you have people with you, if you want to speak, but I'll let you go ahead and take it away. It's, I think, really related to A and B, but go ahead.
Yep, not a problem. It'll just be me, but good evening, everyone. My name is Danny Fobley with JT Klein Company, and we are bringing to you again our Limestone Ridge project. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this. We've been kind of at this project for the better part of 2 years now. It's a workforce housing project just south of IV and Super Target. And right now it's 116 units. We are just starting to finalize all our financing, hoping to break ground in the next month or two. And throughout the last couple months, we've been going back and forth on what we can do to make this project better. And we decided to forego the playground area and add a pool. And this is what is in front of you today, is the ADR application to add a pool patio area. Previously, we had just kind of an outdoor patio grilling sitting area. We kind of extended it out, and yep, there it is on your screen there. And this will be off of Fitchburg Road. And we thought this would be a great way to add some value. There's a lot of 80% units going into this building, and we think that this is a really nice amenity to kind of add here, and it seems to fit that spot. We did a light study that it won't be covered in shade too often, and especially after how this year unfolded, we think it'd be nice to have an amenity on site that we can limit numbers if needed, but to give people a place to be outdoor at a reasonable space from other tenants in the building. Other than that, that's the main change to the design. Sonia or Mayor, if you want me to go into any more details on the project itself, but I think the ADRs basically consisted of the pool.
All right, Sonia, do you want to do a staff report?
Sounds like City Hall might be muted. I'm not hearing anything on the call on my end.
Uh-oh. Can you hear us? You can't hear me at all?
Sonia, do you hear anything?
Yeah, same. Nothing.
Thanks,
Let me
Zach.
chat her up here. She probably just needs to sign back out and sign in.
Okay, it sounds like but they could hear me for the minutes. That's weird. You can hear me just fine. Uh-oh, we're working on it. Maybe you need to log off and log back on, Scott. I saw some notification pop up, but at one point.
They've directed me to log off and log back on, so I will be back.
Can other people hear me online? I don't see anyone giving me any kind of recognition that they can hear me.
Zach, nod your head if you hear us.
Thumbs up, anything, anyone?
Ben, can you hear us?
No, Ben can't, Danny can't anymore, sounds like. Zach, no one can hear me. I'm just talking into the abyss now, it sounds like.
Sonia, do you hear anything?
Yeah, we're muted.
Oh, my God. Sorry, I didn't see that.
All right, now people can hear me? All right.
I can hear.
That's all right, it's Scott's first day. All right, now we're back. Good. All right, you want to give a staff report, Sonia?
Sure. Let me bring up the rendering again here. So there are two agenda items. The first is the architectural design review, and the second is a minor modification of the PDD zoning. Both are required since it's a change to the site plans that were approved by the Plan Commission. A little bit of a bigger picture overview of the site here so you can get the context. This is Lot 10 Orchard Point, and to the west is Fitchburg Road, and then to the north and east is Limestone Lane. And the applicant's proposing to remove what was an outdoor playground in the space where my cursor is to the west of the building and replace that with an outdoor in-ground pool. So here's more the colored architectural rendering showing what that pool and patio space would look like on the west side of the building. And then a rendering in more 3D as it would look from Fitzroy Road. So the staff recommendation is for approval of both the ADR and the minor PDD modification with all standard conditions as listed in the staff report. And any other questions, I can address those from the Planning Commission as well.
All right, thank you. Questions, comments from Plan Commissioners? I know we've seen the overall project quite a bit, just a slight change here.
You're using the same materials, right?
Sorry, say that again?
You're using the same materials on the wall as on the building, right?
Well, for the most part, yeah, we're using the same materials. On the closest point to the sidewalk, that is a retaining wall, so it does need a little bit of more of a buffering. So I think it'll be more of a landscaping wall with a similar colored block, but in order to kind of hold everything in, it's a slightly bigger block than the standard size brick that you'll see on the building.
Okay.
Anything else? I know I asked the question about encroaching into the 10-foot easement, but we actually do that for other patio type areas like this. So it's not unique.
I'll move approval of ADR for 6270 Limestone Lane with the three conditions as noted by staff.
I'll second.
Seconded by Rich. That was a motion by Ed. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, the ADR is approved. 5B.
I'll move approval of the PDD modification for 6270 Limestone Lane with one condition noted by staff.
Second.
All right, that was moved by Ed, seconded by Stephen. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that is also approved. Thanks, Dan.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
All right, next 5C is the ADR for 5415 King James Way. We have Rick and Eric here to speak to this, so if you guys want to come up and tell us what you're doing, that'd be great. So this is the old fire station, Fitchburg Fire Station, for those who aren't sure of the location in District 1. Go ahead, tell us what you're doing.
Yeah, my name is Eric Ertis. I'm a project manager for Dane County Public Works. I'm kind of the project manager for the project. I'm also an architect. And Rick, you want to introduce yourself?
Rick Lang, I work for Dane County Emergency Management. I'm a emergency response specialist sort of thing.
Captured it. We're working with Prairie Forge Group on the design of this project. We took over the building in January, and we've been looking at the conversion, for adaptive reuse of this building to an emergency operations center. It is not a public building. We chose the fire station because it was a similar type of facility. We have been working on the adaptation of it. Currently have the drawings in front of you for that. Can go over a few things. Certainly we can handle questions. Tom Tristano, Rebecca Strader, and Jason Green are here on the screen with us, who can also answer additional questions on the project. Main thing we did, I think, is we reconverted the exterior parking lot. We created a new entry onto Capac Road. We diminished and got rid of one onto St. James Way, and we diminished the size of the current apron. We do use the fleet storage component, but we're not going to be running in and out of it with emergency vehicles all the time. Command vehicle is there. Other storage for emergency facilities is in that area. The exterior revisions, it's going to look pretty similar to what it is now with the existing exterior staying. We're not adding to the building on the outside, but we are remodeling the entire interior. We're looking to change the mailing address of the building to Capac Road. So we're creating a new front entry on the Capac Road side. We felt that was important for a variety of reasons. There's a series of upgrades to the building, including new roofing. We're adding new concrete sidings to connect the parking lot to the new entry. We're reconfiguring and repaving the entire asphalt parking lot, so we're tearing it all out and restarting over again. We're removing that parking lot to give us better flow through there, and we added enough extra parking stalls as a result of that because we tore out some of the island areas. We are landscaping the whole thing. And we are adding dumpster enclosure, as you can see on the plan, and we're adding additional lighting throughout the area, which we're following the guidelines for downlit lighting. We do have a new radio tower, which we're putting on the west side of the building, east side of the building, and that is a approximately 60-foot tower. That'll be a new structure. The old tower, which is approximately 40 feet tall, will remain in place, and that is going to be for ham radio and additional assistance to the emergency management group. If you have questions on that, Rick can expand on that. We're also adding a new generator, taking out the old generator, so we'll have full capacity to keep the station operational in case there is a fallout of the grid for any reason, short-term or long-term. And we're taking out the monumental sign that was right at the corner, taking that out. Our only signage will be on the front entry area of the building, and we can discuss that as you see the elevations a little bit, and that is mostly just going to be lit on the building. We're not placing an extra sign outside. New landscaping, including trees and perennials and turf, will be done throughout the project. Our architects and engineers can assist with answering any questions you might have, and if there's anything about the radio tower itself, Rick would be the right person to discuss that with.
Rick, is there anything you want to add before we go to a staff report?
No, actually, Eric described it very well. So I'd just like to add what we will keep inside inside the bays will be our 36-foot command post, the mobile command post that's used throughout the county. We have a spare ambulance that other EMS districts from around the county use. We have an F-350, we have a trailer, and a couple of other vehicles that are owned by the county that will be in there, but it will be very rare, and I know there was a concern about this raised early on, it will be very rare that anyone leaves that facility with red lights and siren. I can't say never, but very rare.
Great. Sonia, do you want to do a staff report?
This is architectural design review for both site and structural modifications. I brought up their really nice exhibit showing before and after conditions on the screen. So on the left side is today's condition, and you can see where the lot line, this bold line on the north end of the site had changed recently and sort of cut off a portion of the existing parking lot. That was a certified survey map that the Plan Commission approved. And one of the conditions of development of that lot to the north was that this now encroaching condition be resolved. So that is one thing that this after condition will resolve. You can see that they're removing and restoring that and then moving the entrance on KPEC to the south of it. You can also see what was pointed out by the applicant with removal of one of the access drives on King James Way, the one that's closer to the intersection, and then the narrowing of that access point that goes into the emergency bays. So overall, it's a reduction of impervious surface on the site. So the modifications in the parking areas here, the main entrance with sidewalk going up to the building, the trash enclosure on the southeast corner of the site, and the radio communications tower over here on the east end of the building. The staff recommendation is for approval with relatively standard conditions. There are 3 of them. And I just wanted to point out a few other things that were mentioned in the staff report. First is the trash enclosure. You can see that it is proposed to be located at the south end of the site, showing it on the screen. Typically, we would want that to be not as prominent on a public street frontage. However, it is designed with matching materials to the building and screened with landscaping. So there's a red oak and then I think 3 or 4 arborvitae, as well as a bunch of switchgrass on the street side of that trash enclosure. I might ask that the applicant explain the need for that enclosure to be located in exactly this location and why it can't be accommodated elsewhere. Second was a point of bicycle racks. So typically with any sort of ADR or rezoning or that sort of application request at Plan Commission, we'd ask that things like a bicycle rack be included. That's recommended in the city's bicycle plan as well as the Anton Drive redevelopment plan. We've gone through this a few different times with the applicant, and they are noting that it really would not be used at all in this situation. The building is not intended for occupancy by anyone from the public. And if there were any sort of emergency staff visitors from any other agencies there, the center would be really occupied during an emergency, so people shouldn't be arriving by bicycle. So in that case, I didn't include it as a recommended condition of approval. Just wanted to point that out for the Plan Commission. And then the third point is that proposed 60-foot monopole tower. So typically something like this would require a telecommunications facility permit approved by the Plan Commission. In this case, there is an exemption for publicly owned towers that are used for emergency communication like this. So it is exempt from that telecommunications facilities permit, but does require architectural design review. And so it would be approved as part of this request as well. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Questions, comments from Plan Commission? Rich?
Yeah, I got a few. You said it's not going to be staffed regularly, right? But what's that mean?
No,
Is it gonna be empty or?
No, it'll be staffed. So we're relocating and consolidating all of our operations into this building. So presently we have, our staff offices are in the Public Safety Building downtown in Madison, and we are relocating all of our staff to this building and then consolidating all of our equipment, all of our vehicles and things into this building as well, just so that we can be in one place with everything we have.
And the generators, are they, do they produce a lot of noise? Do you have any information on the decibel ratings at the lot lines?
I could defer to either you or to PFG for that.
I think PFG may be able to answer that a little better. We obviously want to be cognizant of noise at the area. We're adjacent to another property, but I don't have decibel ratings available at this time.
Are they going to be new?
Yes.
Yes,
And they'll probably be better than,
it's going to be brand new,
Yeah.
yes.
and the second communication tower, is that just redundancy?
No, so the tower that exists now isn't nearly big enough to support what we needed to support for all the radios in the EOC and in the office, the Emergency Operations Center, and then in the office. So we need to construct a new tower, but we'd like to keep the old tower. We intend to keep the old tower for the ham radio operators, the amateur radio folks who come in to support us during an emergency. So they need their own equipment separate from ours.
I'm good.
All right, other people? I know one question I had kind of, first of all, I'm excited that you guys are going to be taking over the building here and going to be consolidated operations here in Fitchburg. Sonia was talking about the bicycle rack. There is a chance that this will be able to be a polling place for Fitchburg. And so I was curious if there is the possibility of on election days having a bike rack for the day brought in from somewhere else. We might have some that we can also get over there, possibly. I don't know if that's the case or not, but that would be the only instance where if this does end up being a polling location where there might be people biking. So I don't know if that's something that you can bring in on those days or not.
So that's not anything that we've been made aware of at all. That's not our intent with that building at all, is to be a public access building, just because of the things that we have in there and the sensitivity of the things that we have in there. So that's not something that we were made aware of until just now.
Okay. All right.
Is that something, I mean, do we need to talk about that more some other time?
I believe that you might want to talk to Joe Parisi's office, yeah.
Okay. All right. So I won't speak for Joe Parisi or his office.
That's a good idea.
So that's something that, yeah, that I'm just being made aware of right this second.
I think Charles Tubbs, right?
Yeah,
Could be another
he's
person.
he's our boss, and I've not heard anything from him either. But he's been awfully busy with things going on as of late, so
Yep. Okay.
entirely possible that we just haven't hooked up to talk about it.
Okay.
So,
You should.
thank you.
All right, Stephen.
Just one thing that staff had pointed out was the location of the trash or dumpsters. I'm sure just looking at the lay of the land, there's probably not a better place, but can you talk us through why you did choose that? Was there other places that were considered, and why was this better? Because it is, I mean, certainly probably not typical to have your dumpsters right by the side of the street there.
We did have quite a conversation on that, and Rebecca, did you have the ability to kind of bring up some of the alternatives?
Yeah, this is Tom Tristano. What I was going to ask is, Sonia, if you can let Rebecca take over the screen. We have a couple of sketches that we'd like to pull up and just show you why we put the trash enclosure where it's at and why some of the advantages and disadvantages with these options.
Is that possible, Sonia? Can I share my screen?
I stopped sharing, so you should be able to hit your green button to share,
Or
Okay,
unless.
you want me to do it, Rebecca, or you got it?
I got it.
Okay.
All right.
I didn't realize I could share. I could do the same thing. All right. Okay, good.
Okay, so this is just a sketch showing the site plan, and I just did some color on it to point this out. So this building now, this is no longer the front. So with the front door going to this other street and this far corner, where the trash enclosure is going is really the back corner of the lot for them. And it's near the garage doors and this other service area back here. So this is more functional for them to take trash out and function. We originally had it kind of where this green box is. Again, this is going to be paved in concrete and be good for maneuvering the garbage truck on as opposed to paving over here. And again, this over here then is our front door. But the green box, when we got the survey all done and saw how it fit here, there is a electrical easement that is this dotted line right here, and it would be into that easement. So it didn't fit. Plus we have gas line going here and we have new sewer lines here. So there's a lot of utilities running through here, and it just made sense, more room to kind of swing it around here. And it's not that much closer to the street. By swinging it around also, the gates that are on this elevation are kind of pointing back towards the building instead of pointing towards the street in the front. So visually, you're just seeing the masonry backside. And we do have the landscaping there, that's nice. The block, the concrete block is gonna be the exact same, well, as close as we can get to the building with the same striping, a metal coping color to exactly match what we're doing on the building too. I think that was,
And then we also have three or four different species of vegetation around it that I think was rather nicely done. We've got grasses, we got arborvitae, and we've got some trees too. So we think it's set off nicely in this orientation rather than on the east elevation. And in fact, the east elevation, we'd have a structure that would even encroach into the utility easement, which would be probably not acceptable.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Does someone want to do a motion?
I'll move to approve ADR for 5415 King James Way with the 3 conditions as noted by staff.
And I'll second.
All right, Stephen, seconded by Rich. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up, it's D and E are kind of together. I saw Sam was online. So Sam, do you want to speak to these items?
Yes, yeah. I've prepared a quick statement. Hello and good evening. We're Sam and Kay Cook. Currently live at the property that's in question at 5335 Lacey Road. And we've lived in Fitchburg for almost 30 years now, 2 different houses on Lacey Road. And we're applying for rezoning and land division for our 5-acre property. It's located southeast of the roundabout at Lacey Road and Fahey Glen. So there you see the upper left corner is where the Lacey Road and Fahey Glen roundabout is. Purpose of our rezoning request is to allow for our house and barn property, shown as the lot 1 in the upper right, the certified survey map, to be used for business general, and that's consistent with the mixed use designation shown in the Fitchburg's comprehensive plan. And the reason the request for rezoning is occurring is because we were approached by 2 different individuals, a doctor and a chiropractor, about possibly using the existing house for a local Fitchburg medical or chiropractic office. And although there isn't a formal agreement in place right now, their interest is pending the approval of this rezoning request. So the entire 5-acre property is now zoned agriculture transitional, AT, and our request is for 0.6 acres around the house and barn to be rezoned business general, and the remainder of the property would be, outlot 1, would be rezoned as small lot agricultural. And the 4.4 acre outlot 1 and related small lot agricultural zoning would be a temporary holding pattern until some point in the future when there's interest in developing it. And that point in time would be further subdivided and rezoned. I should point out that we've worked closely with city staff, so appreciate Sonia and Lisa and all their efforts in helping us out with this. And we've reviewed the staff recommendations. We do not have any issues with the conditions, including the possibility of a deed restriction to prohibit a gas station on lot 1. And that's been a big deal with the neighbors. Pretty much whenever we bring this up, that's the next question that's asked, like, you're not going to put a gas station on there, right? And absolutely not. Also being founding members and active with our neighborhood association. Through the last almost 30 years, we've gladly shared with our neighbors our plans for rezoning. In addition to emailed information like the certified survey map, reaching hundreds of our neighbors, we've talked directly with several of our immediate neighbors and have only had positive response from them. So in closing, I believe Ron Kloss is on the line. He's with offices of D'Onofrio, Kaki and Associates, and he's here to help answer any questions that might have regarding rezoning. And also Dr. Nicole Himkus, owner of Advocate MD, with offices in Middleton and East Madison already, is the doctor who's interested in our house for use as a medical office. And so we thank you for your consideration. Be happy to stay online and answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you. Sonia, do you want to do a staff report?
So this request is somewhat similar to one that was reviewed by the Plan Commission in 2017, just to the east with Joe Reedon's property. Just similar in the sense that it was a 2-lot division. Part of it was an outlot zoned AS, and the other was a lot zoned business general. So here in this situation, as described by the applicant, it's a 2-lot division of the existing one lot, and they're proposing lot 1 around the existing home and garage, and then the remainder of the land would be platted as an outlet. The zoning request is to rezone the existing home to business general and the remaining acreage to small lot ag. The reason for that change on the outlet is because the lot size is smaller. It no longer meets the requirements of ag transition, which is its current zoning district. So small lot ag, by contrast, can be a minimum lot size of 3 acres. So this is often used as a holding zone. The outlet cannot be developed as an outlet. So when a development proposal is brought forward for that area, we would look at an appropriate zoning district for that area that complies with both the McGaw plan and the general land use comprehensive plan of the city. And we'd also look at any other requirements of the land division on that outlet. So that would include things like dedications of any required streets, such as Ballyduff, as well as Quarry Hill Drive, which is to the south, and then any other easements that would be required at that time. For example, you have the existing stormwater ditch that runs through the center of the site. That remains. There is a little bit of a cleanup that would be happening with this CSM. A stormwater easement would still be dedicated to the public, but it would be located via the CSM in the correct location around the stormwater ditch. So my understanding, and per the applicant in our Public Works Department, is that in the past, the ditch is there, but an existing easement was recorded incorrectly in the wrong location. So that would be released as a condition of approval of the CSM. Then just some notes on the proposed land use. When we had initial conversations with the applicant, there was some question of the intent of the McGaw plan. It talks about things that are really neighborhood serving, requesting ideally something like boutique retail or a coffee shop. So in this case, they're proposing something more of a medical chiropractic office. In discussions with staff and the mayor, we were of the opinion that in any case, whatever the business use is there, what should meet the intent of the McGaw plan by being a smaller scale use and by being a low traffic generator and being generally something that serves more the immediate neighborhood in contrast to a larger regional medical campus, for example. So of course that wouldn't be possible on a lot of this size. So we felt that moving forward with the BG request was appropriate. And then finally, notes on the deed restriction. For similar reasons as outlined in the McGaw plan, the ideal use is being neighborhood serving. We felt it was appropriate to suggest a deed restriction limiting use as a gas station. So by rezoning to BG, any future occupant could pursue any of the permitted uses listed in that business general zoning district. They could also pursue conditional uses listed there. So through a conditional rezoning or a deed restriction, we would eliminate the opportunity to pursue a conditional use permit for a gas station on this site. Again, it's small, relatively close to the intersection and questionable in terms of traffic generation into that site. So other than that note, the staff recommendation on the certified survey map is for approval. There are 9 conditions and they are all standard, talking about appropriate easement locations, payment of any outstanding fees like assessments or MMSD fees prior to city signing of the CSM, release of that incorrectly located stormwater easement. And then for the rezone, the staff recommendation is also for approval, and that has 4 conditions. The first 2 are standard. The third is regarding the deed restriction, and the fourth is regarding future occupancy. We still need to make sure that the site is developed properly for the future occupant. So any exterior changes that come forward will need architectural design review approval from the Plan Commission, and we'll be looking at a parking lot that meets all of our standards in the zoning code for lot coverage, parking quantities, being properly paved, with striping for the parking stalls, et cetera.
All right, thank you. I will open the public hearing associated with D&E here. I do have Wes Weigel who would like to speak. Can come on up, Wes.
Well, I appreciate, the moment, I guess I got the letter from the city and I looked at that whole 5-acre space as if you wanted to transition that to, open it up to business. And obviously, I live on the property on the south side on Quarry Hill Drive. And, obviously, I think it would be a huge mistake to make that all business. There's so many other appropriate locations like out by Highway 14 and, the development with other businesses that will be growing in that area. I guess listening to it tonight, I'm certainly much more open to a doctor or that type of business. But I guess I would want some comfort in knowing that that BG would not change over time, that if somebody came in with the right price, you wouldn't change it to something that would be much higher traffic or something that I would consider, we just like Cyene with what's happened with that gas station and some other things. They just had another incident in the last week, I believe. And, that's been an ongoing issue. And, it's a great community. We've had a ton of growth to the south. Lacey Road has tremendous traffic now that I can see businesses wanting to come in there. But I think you just need to make sure you're always keeping in mind that it's the residents in that area, that need to make sure, that you're taking care of our needs and our future, as growth happens in Fitchburg, obviously, and it's a fabulous place to be right now. It's growing by leaps and bounds. But, I just want to make sure we're doing it properly. And so I guess understanding it a little bit better today, that it's just that 0.6 acres that you're looking at moving. I guess the other agriculture, or A to S, still lends itself to more home development down in the future. Is that correct?
Possibly.
Possibly. Or what else does that open that up to? That type of zoning to go to?
It would have to be rezoned from AS to something else to be developed.
Okay. So it's just basically in the standing
Yes.
position.
It's in a
Holding
holding pattern in
Okay.
AS, yep.
Right now, you're just talking about that 0.6 acres, and, I guess that's really where I come from, and it's not just, and obviously I live right there, so it would have a direct impact on myself, my neighbors that would back up to that property, and, Lacey Road, doctor's office, I guess I'm open to that, but I guess I did want to share that there's certainly other businesses that I would strongly oppose being placed in an environment like that. And right next door is that historical home, correct? Is that kind of being protected as a residential, or that could be business? Is that rezoned as a business right now too?
They could do the same thing where some kind of smaller business. Obviously, there's parking restrictions, so they couldn't do anything with a lot of traffic to it.
Okay.
But it could be a B&B, so even something like that.
And, I guess, I'm just a resident, I'm not in the know like the city council is, but I believe there's also a townhouse beyond just east and behind the historical home.
There's one proposed, yeah.
There was one that was,
approved.
I guess,
It hasn't been
rezoned and
yeah.
it was approved by the council, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, that's some other, high density residential that could possibly, move into that neighborhood in the near future. And, obviously, yeah, there's a business that could capitalize on the tremendous amount of multi-unit housing. And, but that's not the place for it. Okay, thanks for your time.
Great, thank you. All right, I also have some online registrations from people. Joe and Karen Rudin from Fitchburg registered in support. We own property at 5329 Lacey Road. We are in favor of this land division and proposed use. John DeFibre from Fitchburg is registering in support and is the owner of the 3.24 acre adjacent parcel. Kathleen Lemke registered in support and says, I'm in favor of the proposed changes. Charles Treichel from Fitchburg is registering in support. Wyatt Drake Burr from Fitchburg is registering in support. Kevin Stefanchik from Fitchburg is registering in support. Tom and Joey Marshall from Fitchburg are registering in support. David Fahey from Fitchburg is registering in support with a comment, I support Sam and Kay's request for rezoning of their land. And I think that's all I have for public comment. I'm not sure which you're here for.
I was here for that too, but I was changing my tune as well now that I hear the
Okay.
plan.
Okay.
I was kind of in the same boat as Wes, thinking that it was going to be the whole 5-acre segment, so.
Okay. So no further comments then? You're welcome to come up and comment if you'd like, but you don't have to.
No, I'm good, yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. I have no other public comments, so I'll close the public hearing piece and open up to Plan Commission comments and feedback. Ed?
I just had a question for Sonia. What is the minimum lot size for AT that's causing this to need to be rezoned to AS?
I think it's the same as exclusive ag, which is 35 acres. I can verify that.
Also, it wasn't even close at all before.
Right.
Yeah, because we don't zone anything new to AT anymore. We were just talking about this at Ag and Rural. But I thought we had smaller lots that wouldn't be AX that were AT. That's what Wade thought also. I don't know. I mean, maybe it doesn't really matter, but I was just kind of puzzled by the need to rezone the outlot.
Yeah, the minimum, yeah. Yeah, I think it's 35, yep, 35 acres would be the minimum. It doesn't really change, it still allows small, small ag uses, and has been historically used as that holding zone. And like I mentioned, the outlot on the Reed and CSM used a similar approach to rezone to AS until future development occurs.
So the lot previously didn't meet the AT zoning limits anyhow.
Right. It seems like AT had been used a lot, for example, within the urban service area where the property owner wasn't utilizing exclusive ag as a zoning district, which is certified, and you get the farmland preservation tax credit when you use AX zoning. So I don't think that is the case with AT. So perhaps it has something to do with that, where ag transitional land was used for larger parcels within the urban service area. I'm sort of hypothesizing here, if you can't tell.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Other comments? Questions, anything like that?
I guess just to kind of speak to the two community members here that spoke, with Outlot 1, what the idea is that we're putting in this holding pattern, so in due time, this will then, each individual project or plan for that space, it could be further subdivided into further lots, or it could be developed as that entire 4.4 acres. And any of that would have to come past this committee again, right? Do we have any future plans at this point, or is it we're just looking at Lot 1 and nothing discussed with Lot 1?
Sonia?
I can't speak for the applicant, whether you have any development requests there, but just to confirm, yes, the outlot cannot be developed until a land division application is submitted, and any zoning that happens at that time would need to be consistent with the McGaw plan.
Okay.
And what does the McGaw plan say for Outlot 1?
So the northern portion is that 4 acres referred to in the McGaw plan as mixed use. Just earlier this year, the Plan Commission and the council approved a minor comp plan amendment to keep the mixed use land use designation there for the 4 acres, but also to add low density residential of 2 to 5 dwelling units per acre as an option. So that covered the northern portion of this outlet, lot 1, the Stefanchik's historic home to the east, and then the Joe Reedon property further to the east. And then for the southern portion of outlet 1, that's also in the McGaw plan as R1 residential, which is 5 dwelling units per acre minimum.
And there's no guarantees. It's really kind of when they come back to rezone those, it's whoever's sitting up here and sitting on the council that can hopefully keep it to things that are low use and low traffic, but they might have different ideas, and something might come in and they might say, oh yeah, we do wanna, I don't know who knows what, but that's unfortunate. You can't guarantee forever that it's gonna be people who want it to be kind of a low impact use. Probably at least staff recommendation, but those things can change, unfortunately. Other thoughts, comments?
I'll move approval of certified survey map 2370-20 with 9 conditions as noted.
Second.
All right, that's Ed and seconded by Stephen. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. And opposed, nay. All right, that's approved. And then E.
I'll move approval of rezone 2371-20 with the 4 conditions noted by staff.
And I'll second.
All right, that was Stephen and Rich. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. And opposed, nay. All right, that is also approved. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sammy K. All right, moving on to F. We've got the pre-app PDD for 509 Rolfsmeyer Drive. I saw Ben online. I don't know if, Ben, you're going to kick things off or you have someone else online with you, but you want to explain what's going on?
Sure. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. So on Rossmeyer Road, we have a site there that's been undeveloped for a number of years. It's in a tough area to develop in a lot of ways because it has a nice location, but it's surrounded by a lot of industrial properties. It has decent visibility, but not a lot of traffic nearby. And that kind of site is a textbook site for a self-storage facility. And in this case, I appreciate and understand many communities find self-storage facilities in their traditional sense to be undesirable for many good reasons. So in this instance, and in other facilities that we've developed, some really nice, modern self-storage facilities that are climate controlled, multi-story, climate control with very advanced, as far as the industry goes, electronic access and locks. So it's a very nice facilities that we build. They're first rate. And on this particular site, we think the really strong use for this property is for a climate controlled self-storage facility. It's that traditional good visibility, but not so good access. The properties around it are industrial for the most part, of a construction company, of Brown Sewing. To the south, there's one residence, Nick LaPere, and Nick and I have met several times. I've been met with him on Saturday to make sure that he's comfortable with what we're doing. One of the things he asked of us, and is it possible to put the picture up of the rendering on the screen? That might be helpful to get an idea. We could back out. So what you see here is are really 2 buildings. It looks like 3 stories, but it's structurally 2. And Nick, the neighbor to the south, he asked that we keep it to 1 story. So if you're looking at the property from the south to the north, you would see 1 story of, and on this case, because it's not on the street and it's hidden, And we'll create a barrier as well. We'll get into the detailed site planning, a visual barrier to Nick's property. And so you'd have the two-story buildings, essentially two-story buildings. We went through many versions of the site plan. One thing I'd mention on the CSM, there's a number of processes that we have to go through here that we're pursuing. One is adding municipal or a private sewer and water system, and all of that is in process. The property was envisioned when Stuart Brown owned it of having anywhere, I believe, from 2 to 4 lots. He finally settled on 2 lots. We desire to have, essentially have this property be 1 lot, so it'd be 1 use. There's a house on Rossmeyer Road that adjoins this property, and we had an opportunity to acquire that property, which we did this last, I can't even remember when it was, earlier this year in the spring. And that we really did that to facilitate the development of this property. And for now, we're not sure what we'll do with the house. Right now, it's rented out, and we're just holding it for now. It may, if we keep it, we'll maintain a nice residence and rent it out. It depends on how the project develops, but we do own that property so as to not create conflicts with this development. So what you see there really is the larger building is intended to entirely be climate-controlled self-storage. There'll be most likely 2 elevators, maybe 3. We have, we dehumidify as well. We anticipate wine storage, high security storage, and Sakar storage. And then we'll have loading docks to allow people to easily move in and out. But it's a first-rate facility. Access in our facilities are granted through a phone application. So the locks are readily accessible, shareable, and monitored. We haven't figured out where to put gates, but we have gates to prevent free flow of traffic through the facilities. The building, I'm calling it the annex right now, the smaller building, we intend that to be our moving store, where people would be able to buy boxes, rent lifts, rent what they need to help them move. And then we may consider other uses in there that we haven't fully developed. We have intent to have U-Haul on site, as well as potentially, actually we're well down the road of having our own moving company, so we would probably operate our moving company out of that building. We might, the site plan doesn't show it clearly, but as we move ahead, may desire to put a door or 2 to be able to bring trucks in and out of that building. But it would be related to a moving and storage center. We placed the parking where we did to keep a very clean look on the street, basically keep that hidden from the public, you could say. The street isn't heavily traveled. This is largely to be a destination, just like the adjoining sites are. And so the reason you see the parking there is to maintain that desirable street point of view, that we move the buildings forward to the street. So that's the reason why we have that set up the way that we did. With that, let me talk a little bit about the aesthetic of it. We've always built steel buildings and created a nice look on the outside. Here, we're proposing masonry on surfaces, on a certain part of the surface that faces Rossmeyer, so that we have some solid surface. We like putting in windows and variegating the typical straight lines that you see with steel buildings. Is it possible to go back to that rendering again? So we want to break up the lines as much as possible, use interesting textures. So we'd have masonry at the dark gray at the bottom. What you see there are windows with different varieties of steel. It is steel, but it's high quality. I could show you pictures of a finished building that have a very similar appearance, except it doesn't have masonry. We have a building very similar to this, and I would say generally regarded as being very attractive for self-storage. I am considering, there's a builder in Dane County that does tilt-up, concrete tilt-up. So I may come back and offer a different material, but this is probably one of the primary options. And like I say, there's each of the, it looks like 3 stories, but each building is only going to be 2. We won't build a 3-story building structurally. So the first floor will really be built into the hill to keep that low and keep it close to Rossmeyer. The second floor will cover the entire building. And then the third floor will be that, the floor that you see on the south side, kind of in the back, nearest to you in that picture. And that's just one floor. Total gross square footage of the large building right now is about 145,000 square feet. And of course that comes down to net rentables, much less than that. But those are the basic outlines that I would offer you as far as our view of how we think this could contribute to Fitchburg, how it could be a nice addition to a lot that's an area of the city that hasn't developed, but develop in a way that moves this area forward. It may not be the beautiful office that we'd all like to see there, but its size and its location is highly unlikely that will happen. There's been a lot of effort to have something like that happen, and it hasn't occurred. So I think I would suggest to you respectfully, this is a very good use for this site. And our desire is to make it very attractive, a place that people will see, and when they need storage, that they would think of us as one of their options. And I think it would enhance that area of Fitchburg. So if we have any questions or comments, I'd be more than willing to respond.
Thank you. Sonia, do you want to do a staff report?
So the staff memo begins by explaining Fitchburg's historically tight regulations on self-storage use. As the Plan Commission may know, only a very limited number of properties exist where the use could be potentially pursued. So that is in the Rural Development RD zoning district. Our comprehensive plan prohibits any rezoning of parcels to rural development after 2010. So only those properties where the existing zoning is established and where, there was a property for sale and, could accommodate a self-storage use, could the request be made, and that would be through conditional use permit. So again, something that is nowhere in the city a permitted use by right. The memo then goes on to explain PDD zoning, which the Plan Commission has seen a lot over the years. And as we know, this establishes through negotiation with the applicant and the city and the public, a set of specific standards to this site that would address the use and the design. So then in exchange for that PDD zoning, the development must result in a higher level of design than could otherwise be accomplished in standard zoning districts. And it's very important that it should not be used as a way, as a variance or a way to allow a use or design standards than would otherwise be allowed. So the staff memo does list a few main points and concerns. First, with the use, I'll start by saying it's changed a little bit in the recent days. I think some modifications and comment responses mid to late last week that have drawn a few other questions. One of the, for example, with the parking spaces in the rear, staff questioned the location and the safety of that from a design perspective, but also why there is that larger number of stalls proposed for what is proposed as an internal sort of climate controlled vertical storage building. And the comment response, I believe, highlighted that would be used for storing vehicles. I think it mentioned the U-Haul component. So these are new things that typically we would not allow outdoor storage of vehicles, especially in a concealed location like that. The second use question would be a single story use at the front of the lot. This again has changed in recent days. The original submittal had a 2-lot division with the property line going through the center of this area. And the original site plan showed that as a dog daycare center. So in the revised materials that came back with this newer information about RV storage and climate, other vehicle storage moving company and the U-Haul considerations. Second, staff had concerns with design. Renderings were received mid to late last week. Usually, in PDD for something like this, we would not allow one storage, and we would not want to encourage more of that traditional horizontal self-storage look, which appears to be the case on the south end of the building. And again, just the general concern of missing information with the lot lines changing, many outstanding utility issues, and the uses. I guess one more note on the design. I'll go to the site plan. This is a very heavily paved site, it would appear, with pavement going all the way to the property line, around the back, very tight turning movements. This was, let's see, an AutoCAD exhibit showing the fire apparatus moving through the site and having a really, really tough time, sort of tight time, I should say. And then in the rear, overlapping parking lots and curb locations, you can see the pavement goes all the way to the site. It's unclear to staff where patrons would enter the building, other than the vehicles parked in the back to these garage doors. And again, just the heavily paved nature. Architecturally, again, the galvanized steel throughout the building is something that the Plan Commission might want to discuss further. So in terms of PDD, this is the pre-application conference, and the purpose of this is to determine whether PDD zoning is appropriate for the use. So the Plan Commission should provide feedback regarding that, and no action would be taken at tonight's meeting.
All right, who would like to comment or provide feedback first? Ed? Sure. All right, go for it.
I'll start. Yeah, I think it's very important that we do not water down our standards with regard to PDD and when it's used. I don't have an issue with storage at the site. I think the use is fine. We've talked about this before too, but it's a matter of how do we get this project to the point where it really meets our PDD zoning, and I would feel a lot more comfortable if it were at a point where staff was supportive of it. So I guess my feeling is I can get past the use as long as we can get the building and the site design in a number of points that Sonia really brought up. As long as we can get those to the point where we are achieving something that could not be achieved in standard zoning, that we're getting a better project that makes us a better fit for PDD.
Stephen.
The project off of Verona Road that we approved in the last year or so feels very similar to this. Sonia, what is the zoning in that place? Do we change that to PDD, or was it already, or is it something else today?
Correct, it was also used PDD zoning.
Okay. So I use that as sort of a starting point, at least with this, and I think when looking at what that project first kind of presented to us in terms of just architectural design, certainly the same as what Ed had said. I have no problem with it being, this has been brought to us before in the last couple of months, and I think self-storage makes a lot of sense. Too many questions from staff at this point, and unless the applicant has some answers to some of that, I mean, looking at driveways, that doesn't look like it's going to be appropriate. A lot of impervious surface area, not the same kind of design that we've seen at this other project. If there's answers to any of that now, if not, then take that as feedback, I guess.
Rich?
I agree with both you guys. I think there's a lot of, I used to drive down Rolf Meyer every week for another job. And I know that all the water sort of collects at the end of the cul-de-sac there and goes down into brown sales. So I think it's a lot of concrete. I don't know how you're going to deal with the water retention or whatever. So I guess that's one of my biggest concerns. But I was wondering a couple things. One, will you be able to utilize the additional lot that the house is on?
Do you want me to answer that?
Sure, go ahead.
I think the house right now really doesn't add much to the site if we were to demolish it and added we're running out of coverage anyway. If you look at this site, we can have impervious coverage at 65%, and this is at 64. So what you see here is a plan that in the basics meets code at that kind of coverage. So we really can't, it gives us a little bit more land. That lot is only 1/7 of an acre. It really is much smaller than it may appear. So there's a factor there too. There's a bit of, if there's a good house there, like I said, everybody could have their opinion on what's the value of the house, but we wanted to, the house came up for sale from the seller, and as we're all aware, neighbors have a big say in what a development like this looks like. So we really didn't have any plans except that we didn't want that to be a hindrance to the site, and we didn't want to have to, we thought that was our best way. So right now, that's also a financial factor. I mean, there's a bit of capital sitting there, and I'm putting that aspect of the project together. I know it doesn't really affect your consideration, but so you understand what's on my mind is I'd like to get the project further along and leave the house as is. If the whole project supports it at some point, I probably would demolish the house. But I don't think it would change the site very much. Because if you look at the area between the annex building and the house is right where all the water would be collected. That's where the stormwater pond would be located. And it really is a natural location for it. So all the water would flow down to that point and then be discharged into storm sewer. So it would address, it wouldn't affect Stewart's property. We have to control that water anyway. And we take all the water off the roofs and we would pipe it right to the pond. So it looks like a lot of coverage, but there's a really good opportunity here to control the water and to do that reasonably. We could collect some of the rainwater, and Nick would like more water for his Oak Prairie. Maybe we could work with him on that and recycle some of the water. So anyway, that kind of answers the stormwater, and the best answer I can give you right now with respect to the house. If I'm going to own the house in the long run, I assure you it'll be a very attractive house. It'll be very well managed, and it will be improved over time. We don't want to own properties that aren't in very nice condition for many, many good reasons. On the coverage issue, the reason you see the fire apparatus is we didn't get I'm not saying, our first modeling of the fire truck was a few feet shorter than the model that we got from the city after the initial review. So that's why you see a model. We just provided it. We're just being honest with you, saying, here, this is what the longer fire truck requires, which means we're going to have to adjust our site. So we're not suggesting for a moment that that fire truck will work. I mean, this is a preliminary use review, and the site plan will have to go through, further modifications to assure that it can move around. The reason there's a lot of parking on the south side is because the question is, if you look at the rendering, you can see where their doors are located all around the building. So if you understand how self-storage gets designed, and from my viewpoint, the best way to design self-storage is to take your site, max it out for coverage purposes, see what you can do, see if that meets the financial modeling that's required to build a property like this. And then once you get that square footage, then you really start looking at the internal hallway system. And I sent a picture that you need to show that. But because it's all geared around what makes customers feel good about storage, because there's limitations on how far people will walk to get to their storage facility and feel comfortable about it. So when you look at the site, you'll see multiple doors around the site. And the whole building is built around the interior hallway system. And that's all designed around what it takes to have a happy customer. And so they want to be, who use storage, they need a couple of things. They don't want to be too far away. They need easy access. So if you look all around the building, we've positioned doors that all are geared off of our hallway system, which should make it easy for customers to come and go. So that's why we anticipate a lot of them will be on that south end, side, and coming and going from their units, that top floor. In the middle floor, we have, the entrances are really in the middle of the building where you see the dock doors, and then on the other side, we see a door that people can come and go from. So that's why you see the doors positioned all around the building. It's really driven off the hallway system. So I don't know if that helps to give you a little perspective of how did we get to this design. We did look at the Verona Road site, and we tried to incorporate some of those models, just simply because, you know, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel nor to oppose what the Plan Commission might find desirable. So from our point of view, we were trying to get to something that, at least in the initial viewpoint, you would find to be desirable. So I don't know if there were other specific questions I maybe missed, but could attempt to answer.
I'm good.
Stephen, go ahead.
Can you, this feels like a stupid question, but do the hallways that you're talking about, do you drive into the building or only access by foot?
Oh, here we do not have any drive-in unload area. You see the dock door is right in the middle of the building. So we intend one of those to be a lower dock door so a truck could back up, and then you'd have a loading dock. And then the other doors where people would back up and they'd be able to load and unload. They'd be able to, I would say they would be able to move inside the building a little bit to be out of snow and rain, but they wouldn't be driving into the building.
Okay. Then, thank you. Then, I guess to your earlier point about having doors all around the building, you do have those dedicated bays, and like on the south side, you've got all, you know, a bank of doors with all parking, but a lot of the other doors that you referenced that are on all different points of the building, there's no parking near that. So I'm thinking I'm gonna pull up to this door, which is actually a driveway, park my car, get my stuff out, put some stuff in my car and drive. I picture this as just being kind of littered with cars around because of not having dedicated parking that relates to entrance points. So I guess that would just be a little bit of feedback for you. The other big question that I have is, can you talk us through a little bit of why the second building? Why not more evenly divided between the two, or why not just one larger building? What's the desire there? Because I'm a little lost on kind of that second building, the purpose, and what's driving the need for that.
Well, that's really your management building. It's to add more square footage to the main building. We looked at that, and what you have with a site like this, part of it is the desire to keep the distances that people must travel to, you know, as low as possible. So every time you add square footage, you end up with that real challenge of how do you make it accessible. Some of those doors so you have the people that are moving in and out, which you would most likely be using our dock doors. Then there's a lot of people that come and go quickly. They're in and out in 5-10 minutes. A lot of the customers do that. So those doors would be intended to have like temporary parking. Drive lanes be wide enough that there'd be temporary parking by those doors so that people could come and go. Because people will come and get something from their unit. You know, 20% of our customers or more are businesses. And so they're accessing their space on a very regular basis, oftentimes daily. So that's another reason why you have that. So to answer your question about the other building is really the building was getting, you know, large enough, and then to utilize the space fully. There's enough space for that building. And then from my point of view, I kind of grew to really like the idea. At first I thought, I mean, for a long time, a lot of people have contacted me and said, oh, I'd like to have a lot on your property. And, you know, I've kind of come to the conclusion, I don't think I want to have a separate lot, but I think it really would serve the customers well to have a separate retail store that isn't inside the hallway building. And that's what that other building would look like from my perspective. We'd also consider putting, I don't know if we'd be able to do this, but we thought it could be a place for storage or of like RV, interior heated RV storage. You know, and that's all an issue from a building code perspective of fire suppression, as well as potentially for ventilation. You have to have different ventilation systems. But the real idea behind that building is that it would bring us to a point where we'd maximize our coverage. And then I think it'd be very nice if customers could drive to the site. They'd drive in and immediately on the left, they'd see where they could go to either rent a unit, or they could go to buy the materials and supplies they need, or if they simply needed help with something, it'd be very clear direction rather than putting it inside the storage building. It's a different security level as well. So I don't know if that helps to answer your question or not, but that was my thinking.
Rich, go ahead.
Yeah, just a comment. You've mentioned on the rezoning request memo that you were going to try to salvage or save some large oak trees, you said in the southwest corner. But when I looked on the landscape plan, there was nothing indicating that, but there was a note for the southeast corner. So I just want to point out there might be a typo in there.
Maybe there's a thank you. Thank you. I think you're right. The point would be the southeast corner. There's some very nice oak trees there that we designed around.
Yeah, I guess I'll just want to echo the other concerns that I've heard from other people on the site. I feel like there's a lot more detail that has to be worked out. I'm especially concerned about all the parking spots in the back when we don't allow outside parking, storage of boats, RVs, campers, all that type of stuff. And that large bank of garage doors, might be a great spot for some. I think you see that on the Verona Road if you're comparing projects, but that's a lot of garages in one area. I'm also a little bit concerned just aesthetically on the one really long side of the building. When you look at like that, what's out on the screen right now on the bottom there, that's a long, long wall with a couple doors on it, but that's just steel and nothing very interesting aesthetically. And I believe that's alongside the road. So
that's what you're gonna see as you're driving east on Rossmeyer, right?
Right, exactly. So I guess that's a concern aesthetically as well. That I think the front looks nice with some of the masonry and stuff like that, but that's going to be a very visible wall that looks like it's just a big steel wall there as well. So those are just some of the concerns I see.
I like your comment, because immediately after I saw this and sent it in, I sent a note to my architect saying we need to bring the parapet variegation along the west side of the building. So I agree with you. That west side needs a little bit of dressing up.
Great. Ed?
Well, having the doors along the two doors that you've got there right now, if those are actually doors that people would use, I think the point that Stephen made is correct. That's where you'd park your car. You'd stop the car next to the door and you'd go in there. So if you already have an issue with fire trucks being able to get through here, now if you have people that are parked there, that sort of exacerbates that too. So, I mean, it doesn't seem like those are ideal locations for access to the building because there's no parking there.
That's good feedback. I think what we'll do, I think I'd like to keep the doors, which means I need to move the building or make more room for transit, is what I'm hearing. Because they're, from operating a self-storage business and the customer satisfaction point of view, those doors are important. So I'd rather make it convenient for the customer and the people driving around. That's a tweak we can make. I want to make an important point. The parking on the south side is not intended to be leased. That's to meet the code requirement, how we interpret the code requirement. So, that's maybe an issue that we could talk about, is how much parking do we need? And as I've developed these facilities other places, it's always been a discussion, because if you look at the code and you look at a warehouse and you have a certain number of spaces per 1,000 square feet, when you get to a self-storage facility, those numbers always don't make a lot of sense, because you don't have that many people there at one time, because people are coming and going. So what you see is a plan designed to the code, but maybe that's something we could talk about, because we don't intend to rent outdoor spaces. I want to make that really clear. That's not what those are there for. They're meant, one is, I think they're a convenient place to park. I wish we have an updated site plan. So that green area between the two buildings in the most recent plan, and I'm sorry it's not here. This is all, we put this together as quickly as we could, but we keep working on it all the time. So in between the two buildings, that's intended to be pervious parking. So that's intended to be pervious asphalt. That's shown on the site plan. It's just that the rendering, we didn't have time to get the new surface from the site plan, meaning like the grading plan, put into these architectural drawings. So that's a little bit of a disconnect, and I apologize for that. So there's parking between the buildings, and then that parking on the south side was, from a site design point of view, the best place to put those spaces. From my point of view, would they be parked in? You know, very rarely, but not very rarely. Not on a steady basis, you would need many fewer parking stalls on the south side than what is shown. That's to show that we have enough parking. And so I've reached compromises before. One, Village of Kimberly, we did it in Neenah, and we actually in 2 sites where we looked at the parking and we all agreed ultimately on having fewer parking spaces, but having them put in the most convenient places for the customers and what made sense with respect to the fire navigation. So I don't know if that's helpful too, so you can understand our perspective on the parking and why you see what you see.
I think that's helpful, and, you know, having parking available at each door that people would be using to access the building really would be ideal, because I get your point, Ben, that that's really not where they're gonna want to park anyhow, unless they're using one of those bays in the back that has its own garage door. Otherwise, they're gonna be needing to get access elsewhere in some places where there really isn't any parking. So it's just kind of maybe a layout design issue with the building. And the other thing that I would say with regard to the Verona Road project is, you know, one of the big issues that we looked at there that I think influenced us in saying, yeah, this is a building where we can go along with a PDD request, was we had a very, very well-designed with very, very high-end materials on a multi-story building. It really a very, you know, for this area, I know that type of building is built in other bigger cities, but we really have not seen a lot like that in the Madison area. And we looked at that, and it really stood out as something that I think, you know, led to us going along with a PDD. But this is not the type of project that is. So, I mean, maybe take a look at that project and understand that the aesthetics of it was a big part of the PDD approval there.
I agree. I'd like to add one comment to that. Part of the approval was due to the fact that the site was somewhat poisoned from the dry cleaning business. So we wanted to see, it was one of the best uses of the site, I thought.
And this has been a difficult site too, to get, not for a reason like that, but it has been a long time in trying to find, you know, somebody to utilize the site. And it sounds like they're in neighborhood opposition to going additional stories. Is that the problem here? Because, I mean, this is a commercial district. I don't know.
No, I've spoken to the neighbor many times. It was just his preference. And I think the other building on Verona Road is a 2-story building. This just looks different because we have such different elevation challenges. You know, the site moves from Rossmeyer to the top of the hill at 30 feet. So we really are digging into the site and building into the site. But we can look at that. I'd have to understand I think their materials were masonry and aluminum panel. And we've used both of those. So we certainly can take a look at
How many stories is that building?
And Sonia, do you know how many stories the Verona Road building is off the top of your head? And if you're looking for it, I'll just ask Zach. I can't see you on the screen here, so I'm not sure if you've raised your hand to speak or not. Now I can see you. Do you have any comments or anything?
I think most of my stuff got covered right at the beginning with some of the stormwater with the impervious and obviously the fire lanes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, to answer the question, I'm sorry, I don't have that information. I don't want to state it incorrectly.
Okay. Further comments, Stephen?
I was just gonna say, and we do this sometimes, but we're at the early stages here, and so I feel a little bit more entitled to say it. When we give these, wonderful design feedback to people who are very far down the path. But what you have here, I would just suggest or maybe look at, because I think if this were coming to us today as an ADR, I wouldn't approve it as is. And just the mayor's comment of kind of looking at it from the west, that is the way that you would be driving onto it. If you took your entire plan and rotated it counterclockwise, to get the small outlot or smaller building kind of on that first corner as a first impression, that is what, if people are first going to go there to sign up or to, buy packaging material, et cetera. And that way I think about the south and the east side of this as really the back part of your property. And here you're putting a lot of your design effort towards that northeast corner. And I think that's getting lost. Sure, if you're coming at it directly from the north, but if you're driving down Rossmeyer, that's not going to be how you're going to see it. So I would just give that as a suggestion of maybe looking at really making sure that your west and north sides are the most designed. And I think some masonry would really probably help in that regard as well.
This is, I assume it's designed to more address and face the belt line is that right?
Probably Highway 14.
Yeah, so
There's a train track there.
Yeah, it's Highway 14 more than the belt line, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry, Highway 14, yeah.
yeah, we want good visibility from 14. And that's a really good point on Rossmeyer. The rendering, that corner coming in from Rossmeyer is, I agree completely. It needed some additional work. We just didn't have time to get to that. So, but your idea, these are rectangles. So to some degree, the building is designed to meet the elevations of the building. So as the lot moves to the north and east, I'll have to look at that and see what the topography, if sliding that building, essentially swapping out those parts of the building might not be too hard to do. It might actually bring a nice corner as you come down Rossmeyer. It's an idea I'd like to look at. I would think that'd be possible.
I think overall, at least you're hearing kind of where we're going with this. Because I hate when we do these and we don't give real good, clear, here's, if you're going to come back, I don't want to surprise you, your second time here.
Yeah. I think we've given lots of good feedback. If there's anything else, we can keep going. Otherwise, we can move on. But
I would say if this is, the body that's going to kind of make the, big part of the decision on this, but if you get to the point where Sonia's happy with it, there's a pretty good chance that we're going to be happy with it too, Ben.
Well, I appreciate the feedback. I've been asking for that. I think it's helpful because from day one, my goal is to have a facility that you feel is appropriate and is helpful to the community. So more than willing to bring back to continue the discussion.
All right, thank you. I think that's all we have for now, and there's no action that we're taking on this. So thank you for your time, Ben.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll go down to G, public hearing and consideration of ordinance 2020-0-23. Sonia, do you want to speak to this?
Bring up the agenda here. So we're on G, ordinance to amend chapter 26, our sign ordinance regarding flag signs. So first I will just explain what the ordinance amendment is, and then second explain why this was brought forward. So at the time the ordinance was published, the modification was written to allow one flagpole up to 25 feet in height across the city. Upon further review, we found that there are multiple commercial properties that do have 3 flagpoles and that are slightly higher than 25 feet. Therefore, the staff memo recommends language a little bit different than what was initially published. So what we propose is a differentiation of 1 flagpole in residential districts up to 25 feet in height. And then in all other districts, we're recommending 3 flagpoles. And then the height recommendation would be 36 feet. I think it says 35 in the staff memo, but we did have someone go out and measure the flagpoles at City Hall. Those come in at 36 feet in height. So 36 would be the recommendation. Also included in the memo, flag poles and flag signs would be exempt from a permit. So this means that they can be installed as long as they meet those specifications that are listed in the code, and it would not detract from the total overall signage, that 150 square foot max that businesses usually get for signage. A few more notes on the height. The 25 feet and the 36 feet seem standard based on what is available for purchase, just in a quick search online of purchasing a flagpole. It's also similar height to what's used in the city. I mentioned City Hall. It appears a similar height is used at the Tri-North building. Playcon is another example. For commercial districts, the 36-foot height also makes sense because it's less than the maximum building height of 42 feet. So if you're looking at having the flagpoles sort of be a little bit lower than the max building height, that would be make sense as well. And then it's comparable to other communities. So that's what the ordinance is proposing. Flags are not otherwise addressed at all in the code. So that's the purpose of bringing this ordinance amendment forward. We've received inquiries over time as to what is allowed, but we're just not able to provide any clear direction. Not having a defined regulation for flag signs could put us in a tricky situation in the future, where we might be asked to regulate a flag based on the content. So for example, a business could put up a large sign and it might include business identification, commercial messages, and that sort of thing. But we would have to be really careful about recognizing that as a business identification sign, while at the same time treating government flags or other non-commercial expression differently. So it's important that in all of our sign code regulations that the ordinance is content neutral. So we have to be able to look at the sign and say it's a flag, it meets this height, it's installed in this quantity, but we wouldn't be able to treat it differently based on who the speaker is. So that came out of a 2015 Supreme Court case called Reed versus Gilbert that we've talked about a little bit at the Plan Commission in the past. So again, this is proposed in order to establish regulations and clarify what the situation is where there was none, so that we can give a clear answer to people and to avoid a situation that may get us into that content-based regulation in the future.
All right, thank you. I'm going to open the public hearing. I don't think we have anyone that wants to speak to this. No, we do not. So I will close the public hearing then. I had actually one question that came up just in the last day or two here, Sonia. I know that we're looking to do some improvements to our Veterans Park, and I know that a lot of veterans parks in the area have a lot of flags, you know, American flag, also flags for each branch of the service. Is that something I don't think that's in their plans right now, but is that something that they would have to come in and ask for a waiver if they wanted to do something like that? Or would we just tell them, sorry, you have 3 and that's the max you can do?
It's a good question. The way it's written, it would permit only 3 flagpoles. Again, this was proposed just as sort of, what seems to be consistent throughout the city, and a good starting point. If we wanted to consider allowing more, it would be a code amendment. So we could discuss that further now and vet it out, or there's also the option to consider the best sort of legislative solution when that issue presents itself.
Rich?
Yeah, flags not exceeding 24 square feet comes to 4 by 6. And flags should be proportional to the height of the flag pole. So I think we want to change that 24 to whatever the typical size for a 36-foot pole, which would probably be closer to 6 by 10 or something like that.
I guess I don't know. But if you say 3 by 6 or 10 by 8. I don't know what looks
Well,
right and what doesn't on a flagpole.
You see like a flagpole at a residential house could be 15 feet, it's got a 3 by 5. So you start looking at something being, over twice that height. It's the proportion. Maybe the thing to do is to look at what we have out here and what some of the other businesses have.
I think there are standards for that, are there not, Rich? But I'm not sure where to
Yeah,
find them.
I was looking a little bit and I saw anywhere from 1/4 to 1/3 of the pole height should be the length of the flag. So for a 36-foot high pole, that could conceivably get up to 12 feet. But then as I was looking at other ones, I saw more where it's just sort of a general recommendations of what fit the best. But again, I think we should take a look at what we're using out here and what some of the other businesses are.
Do we have a Perkins coming in anytime soon?
Yeah, with those giant
Perkins
flags.
or the car dealership. Yeah, they could dealership right off of
dude,
Beltline
yeah,
there.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of like the dealership has a big one.
Yeah.
With regard to additional flags, could we put in some language here that would allow a larger number than that by conditional use? So that they would just come in and request the CU for it?
Yeah, Ed, I think that that's a reasonable solution, and it's something that we've used in other situations. For example, the conditional use permit is required for an electronic menu board sign at restaurants where otherwise we don't allow electronic signs. So we allow the conditional use approval for that. Another example is for motor vehicle fuel price signs, where those are LED price signs. That comes to Plan Commission for conditional use. So that could be an easy way to resolve that issue. In regard to the size, I just want to add a little bit more information as well. We did look that up. Lisa reviewed the standard size for, it was probably the 25-foot pole. So we'd have to see if there's additional information.
We're sorry, your conference is ending now. Please hang up.
No, it's not.
Scott.
Thanks, Scott. So the 24 square foot flag seemed appropriate for the 25-foot height pole. Not positive if that's also standard for 35, but we also reviewed other communities. So Brookfield, for example, they have a 35-foot height max and also the 24 square foot flag. That's also similar on Alaska, 25-foot height, 25 square foot flag. They do in some situations allow a 50-foot pole with a 100 square foot flag. So because we were maxing out at 35 or 36, we felt the 24 square foot was appropriate.
Could we just defer this till next month?
We can always postpone and, I need some more information.
Then we
Absolutely.
get some more info. Would that be okay with you, Sonia?
I want to make sure everyone gets a
Yep.
chance to provide their feedback before we do that, if there's more input that anyone has. Okay. If someone wants to postpone until next month, we can do that.
Does it have to be a motion?
Move.
I move we defer or postpone this item till next month.
All right, it's Rich and seconded by Stephen. All in favor of postponing until next month, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, we will talk about it more next month. All right, next one, Sonia.
This is a resolution that would grant an easement to the city for public sidewalk, and the location is on a lot in Smart Code zoned area uptown near the Lacey and Hay Farm Road roundabout that we just reviewed and approved for the Limerick Senior Housing Development to move forward. See, I have an exhibit here. So it's really just this small area where the public sidewalk would go on to private property. So this grants that easement to the city.
Any questions?
I'll move approval of resolution 199-20.
I'll second.
All right, that was Ed and seconded by Rich. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that one's approved. One more, Sonia.
Yeah, my screen went white here. All right, so this last one is another easement. It's granting easement to MG&E in the Terra Vesta plat. They found that they needed more area dedicated in order to serve the first edition plat that the Plan Commission recently approved. So this is right at the edge of that first edition on Outlot 35, and it's a 6-foot MG&E easement.
All right. Any questions?
Move approval of resolution 208-20.
Second.
All right, that was Ed and Steven. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that's approved. All right, report from departments, Sonia?
At the last meeting, I mentioned that we had opened our second round of minor comp plan amendments, and that deadline was last Thursday, I believe. We received no amendments from the council or from the mayor, so nothing for the second round, and we'll open those again in 2021 in the spring as usual. And our next meeting is December 15th.
All right, thank you. Announcements, I just have one, and today I thought it was going to be Lane's last Plan Commission meeting. He's moving to Verona, sadly. I don't know why you'd do that, but he's moving there, so he had to step down. He thought he was going to make it today, but moving got in the way, and so he is fortunately not going to be on Plan Commission anymore. His seat was up for reappointment in April anyway. And at this point, I'm not planning to reappoint anyone until April, because if I reappoint someone, they have to get confirmed again right away anyway. And I know, January, February, March, we're going to do a push for people to apply for openings on various committees and commissions. So I'll make sure that we get a good, representative group and give people a chance to apply. In theory, that seat could be anyone in the city, since right now, all 4 districts are covered, and also someone is in the rural Fitchburg, which are kind of the 5 requirements. So that position, that seat, I guess, could be anyone from the city at this point in time. So if you know people, you want them to start thinking about it, maybe apply to be appointed in April, that'd be great. But thank you, Lane, for your almost 3 years on the commission. Any other announcements, Sonia? Anyone else? All right, then is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Steven, seconded by Rich. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, say nay. All right, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.